It's David Ault, and I want to welcome you to an additional episode of The Gathering. I like to think of The Gathering as a virtual gathering place where those of us who are bending in thought towards application of spiritual principles, of going beyond what it is that we may have settled for in terms of our understanding of spiritual principles, and also to take the hand of any kind of information, whether that comes through me or ideas that surface from listening to this, that will then lead you into something beyond, into a more cutting edge, a more mysterious, a more boundary breaking opportunity of embodiment and application. That's a lot, but it's really what the intention is behind these. And as I share with you the message of my heart from week to week, I want you to know that these messages are also things that I'm working on and uncovering for myself. So I appreciate the fact that you are here and that you are willing to listen and hopefully apply. So I wanted to let you in on a little thing that I do, particularly when I'm driving in my car. I have this mental practice where I pretend that I'm being interviewed. Whether it's a podcast or a television show, it doesn't matter. But I like to do that. I like to craft a question, and then I like to practice being as succinct as possible in answering that question in order to not only help me be a better teacher, but also help me find a way to get to the point and to bring a sense of clarity. I think one of the things that is so pleasing and so enthusiastic within me as a teacher is how do I find a way to articulate very complex principles in a way that is discernible to the masses. So here's one of the things that I play with in practice. I always imagine that I'm on an episode of a podcast or an interview, and they end with this question. If you had the entire world's attention, what would you want to say? Isn't that a great thing to play with? I always think that in the future, as I look at and weigh the time and the effort and the means to create a more formalized podcast where I'm interviewing people, because I love that, that's how I would close. That I would ask people repeatedly over and over, if you had the world's attention, what would you want them to know? Now, think of the enormity of that question. If you had the world's attention, that means every single person was not distracted, but they were focused on whatever was going to come out of your mouth. What would you want to say? And I returned to that exercise this week as I was traveling about town here in Atlanta. And I realized that over time, there is a shift in that answer. Based upon where I'm at, based upon what it is that I'm particularly studying or focused on. But there is one thing that continues to surface in that exercise that's fairly common, and it's this. It's understanding that you have already won. That's really hard for we'll call them the average person to absorb, because our entire existence as a human on Earth, it's what I call the plane of form. The whole syllabus or lesson plan or curriculum about being human on Earth is you're entering into the classroom of duality. And in the classroom of duality, there are seeming opposites. That means that for every time I have something, there are equal times where I have the experience of having not. You see, and so duality in and of itself is quite an extensive lesson. It's something that is inescapable. It's baked into this lesson plan of being human. And as much as a spiritual teaching or philosophy will tell us that there is only one activity or one God, we're still having to listen to that from the lesson plan of duality. And so one of the ways that I find that it might be easy to help us think about non-dualism in a dualism framework is to say, I want you to know ultimately that you've already won. And then I practice on how I would break that down so that it would be palatable and understood by the masses. I don't know if there's a formula for that. I don't know if there's success to that, but it sure is fun practicing getting to the point. And so part of that is exactly what I just said, is trying to get people to understand, trying to get myself to understand that what we're experiencing is not the totality of the experience. It's a small fragment. I like to use scope measurement in order to kind of help that out. It's a thread in a cosmic blanket that has no end. It's a thread. We're experiencing, I'm experiencing your personality, you're experiencing my personality, and that is what is only a single thread in a multi-dimensional, endless cosmic blanket. Hard to wrap our minds around. But when I say things like, you've already won, I'm not talking about the single thread. I'm not referring to the experience of this singular dimension, which we're going to call Earth, which we're going to call being human. I'm not referring to that. I'm referring to something beyond. And the whole point of a spiritual path is to practice and welcome in that which is the beyond, that which is the unseen, that which is the mystery. That is the whole construct around the idea of faith. And if we don't entertain that, if we don't consider that, and if we don't dive into a meditative practice where we can experience dimensions beyond this one, then it is going to be really hard to fight against a system that is dual, the haves and the have-nots, the wins and the losses, all of that kind of stuff that talks about polar opposites as being real. And so they appear real because they're, again, a part of the natural phenomenon of the dualism of this earth plane, this lesson plan of duality. But your whole reason, perhaps, for being here is to find some way out of the trap of that, out of the finite nature of that, the infinite nature of that. So if I had the whole world's attention and I could tell them something, I would say, you have already won. That's going to take a little bit of unpacking. That's going to ask of you to dissolve and step out of an entire old belief system. It's going to press you to practice that there is something beyond what is seen. And then we would have to tap into a tangible experience. So I would immediately go to the sky. And I would say, you understand this fundamentally. You just aren't aware of how much you understand this because you actually know this, because that's what you are. You are a knowing creature. And you know this because you can look at the sky and see a cloudy, overcast day, and you can know that that's not the end point, that there is something beyond the clouds. Why? Because you have had an experience of a starry night. You have had the experience of seeing celestial magnificence up there. You've entertained astronomy, and you've had the experience of space travel and seeing all of the things that we've done in this plane of form. So you know that even if there's cloud cover, there's something beyond that. Can you know that then from a spiritual perspective with a problem? Can you know that then from a spiritual perspective with an illness, with a despair? Can you know that in times of paralyzing doubt? Can you understand that there is something beyond that particular experience that you are going through? And that would be the way that we would break down this question. If you had the entire world's attention, what would you want them to know? I would want them to know that they've already won. And then, if they're interested, off we would go in unpacking all of that. And so, as I am rebooting this screen, I got so excited. Uh, that then is where the practice of my own personal wanting to be a really great teacher comes in, because I'm continuously wanting to refine how to get that across, and you're one of my opportunities to practice. And so when I say that we're already one, I'm saying, can you consider that when you face a fear, that you can hold in mind that the fear is just one small fragment of an idea or a physical appearance in a whole cosmology beyond understanding. That from this particular small, tiny plane of form called Earth are millions upon millions of other planes. And if there's an ultimate destination plane, that it's the plane of at one-ment. It is the plane of God. It is the no thingness, because all it is just pure being. And that is what we return to, not me, David, not you, your identity and your human identification, but us as a soul. That the whole purpose of this karmic destiny and journey and all of the adventures and all of the reincarnated journeys that we are experiencing, they all lead back to the one place. And the one place is the idea that we've already won. We cannot help but return to that. And it may take millions upon millions of journeys and redos and coming back over and over and over again to even consider that you and I have already won. But I'm wanting to fast forward a little bit and say, what's the ultimate? If you want to ask me what's the reason for any of this, it's because we return back to the one. And the idea and the opportunity that we have some say about the quality of that journey, we have some choice point with regards to the effectiveness and how we bring others to that return home, is the whole point of doing this. And so you've already won. And let's look at an everyday way in which you can apply this. So I'm about to lead a class called The 12 Gifts from the Camino, having just walked the Camino de Santiago again. And one of those gifts is to ask without attachment. Have you ever noticed that there is this false sense of nobility that many of us seem to hold with regards to, oh, I don't want to ask anybody for anything? As if this sort of self-proclaimed independence is holy or more sacred than the person who is asking. And so we've built this stigma that by asking, we either are bothering people or it makes us look weak. That in and of itself is enough to halt us from doing things. We've been groomed, we've been domesticated by the way in which we've been raised and taught that somehow there's this independence that is far more noble than being dependent. And yet what we are is interdependent. No person is an island unto themselves. We need each other. And the way in which the effectiveness of that interfacing is by the art of asking and receiving. Receiving isn't better than asking. And yet there are so many lessons that have told us, ask and you shall receive. It isn't sit there and don't do anything and you shall receive. It's like ask and you shall receive. But here's the juicy part of the fact that you've already won. It's we have sort of bastardized this idea of asking, again, from shame. I realize that a lot of times we hesitate in our asking because it's woven into unexamined and unhealed unworthiness. We're not worthy to ask, or we're ashamed to ask, or we are somehow bound to a finite story that no one's going to care, no one can give. we have just the slightest bit of rejection and we take it personally. So the key then to applying what I first said, which is you've already won, is to apply that to your personal asking. And here's the key. Can you ask without attachment? So if I'm A and this person is B and I give something to B, asks me of something, and so I give to B. What happens is we get caught then, like A might think that now B owes us. And so the asking becomes a sort of manipulative tit for tat, and it's a very limiting understanding of what reciprocity is. It's human reciprocity, which is completely fallible, because it's like, as I give to you, you give to me. It's understanding that whatever it is that we give or whatever it is that we ask, we free the receiver, and we also free the person who's being asked from being the appointee. In other words, we learn to ask without attachment. Can you ask? Can you break through the barriers of your ingrained stigma and just ask without shyness, without embarrassment, without shame, without any kind of hesitation? Can you freely ask and then let anything, any person, any organization that you've asked off the hook, and just ask as an aspect of dancing with energy, as being a part of a reciprocal flow? If the scripture says, ask and you shall receive, you're going to have to ask. But can you ask free of stigma? Again, can you ask free from somehow it being shrouded by unaddressed unworthiness? And so this has always been a thing for me. It's been a thing for pretty much anyone who has been clergy. Anybody has issues with asking. There's very few people that I know who don't have any kind of issue. Sure, is there strategy around asking? Of course. If I'm not going to keep going to somebody and asking them for something if they've already told me no. I will just thank them, whether verbally or inside my heart, but I'm working on never apologizing for asking. And this is such a thing for me because I'm leading a nonprofit, and the whole world of nonprofit is based on donor participation, based upon applying for grants, based upon disseminating information, for example, mine with global education, about all the programs that we're doing. And I've had many people come up to me and say, I'm so tired of everything I see about you is kaleidoscope child. They've literally said that to my face. And I've taken that and I go, oh. And I've sort of cowered a little bit and I say, maybe I'm not doing such a good job. And I realized that doesn't have anything to do with me. That's more about that person or that feedback, and that's fine. Can I just let that go? And can I continue to ask? If the mandate is ask and you shall receive, it's really saying, can you ask and then trust? Can you drop all preconceived notions? Can you ask with the understanding, here it is, we're going to tie it in. Can you ask with the understanding that you've already won? Wow. In other words, everything that I'm desiring to create, that creation is already in existence in the whole quantum experience. Can we just relax? Can we just accept the fact that we have already won? That doesn't mean that we don't do the work. It means that we show up, we ask, we dig, we feed, we even strive at times to build and to create better circumstances for our one global family. But can we do it with the realization that everything that we are aiming for is already wrapped into this beautiful, solution-driven experience of having received? Therein is really one of the things that I would want people to understand if I had the entire world's attention. I would want them to know that Their reason for being here is to experience an unraveling of their own divine nature. And we would find ways to personalize that and to get people to understand. It's why I'm here with you. It's why I'm doing the work that I'm doing, because I've been hung up lately with the whole thing of asking. We're doing I did the Camino fundraiser, and we have a big fundraiser this weekend, and I'm looking at how do I let go of my lifetime of unworthiness around asking. And it's really this, it's by asking. I'm not governing the form of the reciprocity. I'm going to ask, and it may not come from the person that I'm asking, but it will come. And do I just keep asking and putting it out there and letting the seeds of the ask fall on fertile ground, and already delighting in my heart the way in which it will come, instead of worrying whether or not it will. That is helpful when I incorporate it with this idea that I've already won. The passions of your heart, your reason for being, you have already succeeded, in so much that you continue to keep your heart open, in so much that you continue to learn to ask without attachment, in so much that you continue to evolve in unmasking all of the conscious and unconscious layers of unworthiness. This makes that statement, "you've already won," really land differently. It's not a teaser. It's not a dangling carrot. It's a tangible truth that we can begin to breathe into, that we can exhale all kinds of ancestral worry, and we can begin to see, oh my God, that cosmic blanket is so wide and so far beyond just this single plane, this lesson plan of dualism. And it gives me some deeper embodiment of trust. It brings integrity to the principle that indeed there is only one reality, and it's love. And I'm returning to that. I'm on a journey of returning to that. It's every allegory, it's every spiritual parable that has ever been told. And how can you have a taste of that today instead of it landing on deaf ears? And that is by saying, I've already won. I've already won. I know that I'm into this really because I keep forgetting to press the button because I'm so excited. So I've already won. You've already won. And so what I want you to do real quick before we end is to pause for a moment. And I want you to think about one thing that is disconcerting, one thing that worries you. And I want you to take that thing, whether it's person, place, or thing, and sort of lay it down on, you could call it an altar, you could call it a beautiful meadow, some sacred symbology, your puja table, whatever it is that is holy for you. And I want you to just lay it, that thing. If it's a person, I want you to see their face. If it's an illness, I want you to take that illness and see it in color or form. If it's a bundle of worries, I want you to see all of those worries bundled up, and I just want you to place that thing down and to consider that the moment that you take your hands off of it, you have released it, and it is beginning to have this alchemical transitioning where all of that which is wound up in the dualism is evaporating, and it's being reconfigured in the non-dual, or the part that tells us that we are a part of that which is whole, which is perfect and complete. And you can do this repeatedly throughout the day. Like, take a worry and just lay the worry on that altar. You can take a person that you're in discord with, and you can place them on that altar. And you can say, we've already won. We've already won. We've already won. I hope you'll apply that. Thank you again for watching. And I do want you to know that you have, indeed, you are so holy and so precious and so divine. And it's my heart's desire to find a way to remind you of that, to remind you of your magnificence. Much love.